Shalom, everybody. Welcome back to the Baal HaSulam's Matan Torah with commentary by Rebbe Avraham Morechai Gottlieb. We are in the essay, Revealing Handbreadth and Concealing 2. We're on page 43. We'll jump in to the section called Permission from Heaven. Permission from Heaven is the notion that the greatest of the generations, being Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Arizal, the Baal HaSulam, received permission from heaven to receive and to give over the great wisdom. Let's figure out what it means. This matter is explained in the book Gateway to the Sayings of Rashbi, authored by the Ari, discussing volume 4, page 100 of the Zohar and the Torah portion Mishpatim, under the heading The Son of Yochai Knew to Guard His Way. The Rebbe Shlita says Rashbi is the acronym for Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai, author of the Zohar. And the Ari refers to Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, the continuation of the soul and spark that was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who was the soul and spark and continuation of Moshe Rabbeinu himself. So to imagine what the soul really is and the purpose of this collective, ultimate tzaddik, and the amount of light that they revealed for us in our betterment in order to get closer to the Creator. And so to the most recent incarnation of this soul, the Baal HaSulam, who said in a personal letter to his father, to his brother, how he had received an Ibor of the Arizal. As opposed to being a Gilgul, meaning a reincarnation, it's also possible to receive a soul in the midst of one's life, in the midst of one's inner work. They can merit to receive, by the Creator's hand, of course, a particular soul at a particular level in order to further assist them in the purpose of bringing goodness and joy to humanity and therefore the Creator. In the case of the Baal HaSulam, he said he only merited to receive the soul of the Arizal by God's hand, due to the merit of the generation, not his own merit. Because certain tzaddikim, certain righteous people, and their light, but through the means of their books, are revealed in accordance to the needs of the generation, as we'll continue to learn. The Baal HaSulam continues. These are the words of the Ari there. Know that some souls of the righteous have the quality of surrounding light, in Hebrew or makif, and some have the quality of inner light, or pnimi, whose explanation can be found in the book Glowing Countenances, Panim Merot, in the chapter Those That Surround, section 48. All those who come from the aspect of surrounding light, or makif, have the capacity to speak of concealed matters and secrets of the Torah by means of masking and great hiding, so that only those who are fitting to understand them will comprehend. The Rebbe Shlita says on this, divine light can be so pleasing that it will be tempting to receive it in order to get the pleasure, instead of receiving it with the pure intention of fulfilling God's purpose for creation. This is, in truth, the addition of the author, the translator, Aryeh Siegel. And we continue to the words of the Rebbe Shlita, page 44, comment 18. Those who have a screen, Hebrew a masach, being the filter that discerns what light can be received with proper intention, will be able to receive only that portion of the divine light, called the inner light, or pnimi, that can be received with the intention to give. To summarize again, the Masach, because Avodat Masachim, the work of Masach, the work of placing screens in our work, is such a central point of our work. And it can be summarized by turn away from bad or turn away from evil. Asur Merah. But a practical example would be one has a pizza in front of them. The entire pizza is split into portions, and I decide for myself I can only receive 1/4 of the pizza with proper intention. That's how much I need for the energy throughout my day until my next meal in order to serve the Creator appropriately. I can receive 1/4 of that pizza in order to give nachar ruach, joy, a spirit of pleasantness to the Creator, because that's the necessity that I need. The rest of the pizza would already be considered or makif relative to this example. Once I make that accounting, that cheshbon, and I deflect, so to speak, I make a masach, a screen on 3/4 of the pizza, the 1/4 that I do consume would be considered or pnimi, inner light, meaning it's the experience in the moment, as opposed to the future experience of or makif, that which is still surrounding and potential to be absorbed by the vessel being myself. I'll save the other pieces for later. The Rebbe Shita continues, however, the surrounding light or makif is what cannot be received at this stage with the intention to give. The surrounding light is the much greater light that illuminates from afar and reaches even those who are banished to a great distance from it. Meaning even those who are as far as one can imagine are still being illuminated as if from the heat of the sun so many miles away, still feeling the sparks and the heat and the warmth of the sun. So too in our spirituality and our work, even if we are not aware of it practically, this or makif is still shining to us from afar, keeping us invigorated and in motion in order, even if unconsciously and subconsciously, driving ourselves in order to receive it. Because once we receive all of this surrounding light, that will be determined to be fulfilling the purpose of creation. Because the Creator wants us to receive all of His light in order to give. And this is the idea of the Masach again. Receiving only that which I am able to receive in order to give. I can receive with proper intention. Each person receives something from this light in accord with that person's spiritual state. And the more we work to follow the path of attachment to God, tvekut, even while still dominated by defilement, being our ego and our self-love in order to please ourselves alone, the greater will be our illumination from the surrounding light, the Or Makif. And there's different parameters of Or Makif and Or Pnimi. An amazing one that I've heard is that the prior generations are like Or Makif, meaning above space and time to consider all generations. The prior generations are still shining to us from afar because what we have today, the wisdom that we can gain from the soul that they put onto the page is still shining. And we have the opportunity to connect to it. In contrast to the current generation, which is considered or pinimi, because the experience right now, it is what is already being received. And also it paints the picture of Yeridot Hadorot, the dissension of the generations. Meaning as the generations continue, we are on an even lesser level of spirituality. Meaning we also have the greatest potential because we have the biggest challenge, and the biggest coarseness, the biggest ego. As our sages tell us, that chutzpah will grow towards the end of time, towards the coming final redemption. And we see so clearly today. Even practically, in secular society, we see this dynamic manifest more so than any other generation, clearly. How so? Technology we see by the dynamic of technology that children and teens find themselves confidently to be on a more advanced level than their parents and the prior generation. Because the current generation, having that their first babysitter is a smartphone or a tablet, and they're already glued to the screen as early as maybe half a year old, and so they grew up with everything in their hands, the whole world at their fingertips, in relation to the prior generation who had computers slower and slower, a lack of computers, so on and so forth. That's already an archaic generation. They don't know what they're talking about. We see it so clearly in today's generation, throughout the world, in relation to technology. This growing chutzpah of how the current generation believes themselves to be all-knowing and all-powerful in relation to older, archaic generations. But the Rebbe Shlita has said many times that the opposite is true in regards to Torah and mitzvot, at least. That prior generations were clearly more refined and more connected. And we, even with our smartphones and computers, are the primitive ones who are far from connecting to the Creator on a simple, authentic level. So, the Or Makif slowly but surely whispers to us in our consciousness, because these are two opposing opinions in our consciousness. Or Panimi is what I'm happy with right now. I have my portion, and I'm happy with it. And Or Makif is that essentially infinite light that's outside of myself that I can still receive through a myriad of ways, that whispers to me, saying, receive more, receive more. The Creator wants you to receive. It's the purpose of creation. It's also the purpose of creation in the meantime, to work on the tikkun of creation, because I need to get to the place of receiving or to give by means of giving to give, and making masachim, and receiving only that which I can receive in order to give, what I need for my survival. He continues, the soul of Rashbi was from the surrounding light, which is much greater than the light, the inner light, as previously noted. For the surrounding light is not limited by the soul's vessels, but the inner light is limited by them. Thus, Rashbi, Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai, revealed the Zohar to the whole community of Israel with great sagacity, and each person can get some feeling from it, some illumination to his soul. The Rebbe Shita has said recently that those at the level of Gemar Tikkun, meaning the full correction of their soul, like Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai, was operating above space and time. They could tap into a consciousness that went into the mainframe of the system of all of reality and see from start to end. So when he wrote the Zohar, he wrote it for us, specifically for this last generation. And we have the merit to connect to it today in a clear and understandable way. Of course, with great Rebbes who know the matters intimately. He continues, however, a true understanding of the Zohar, that is, when the surrounding light shines within as inner light, is still only for those who struggle to perfect themselves, each according to his or her level. The path of spiritual work is to invest effort in learning as a means to draw down the light of the Torah from this surrounding light, this Or Makif. Each person merits according to his or her level until the light of the Torah perfects him or her, and the surrounding light becomes inner. This is the purpose of learning the inner meaning of the Torah, to draw from the surrounding light whatever is relevant to the soul of the individual. Meaning, when we learn, we should have the intention to draw the Or Makif into our inner being, in order that this Torah refines us, because the light of the Torah, as the Zohar says, Torah is from Hora'ah, meaning it's a guiding way. And it's also from the language of Or, meaning it's the guiding light that shines within our consciousness and our inner being, so that we can see the truth about ourselves, and slowly but surely request the Creator to help us by means of seeing what we cannot correct ourselves because of the major egoism that we hold on to. This is the purpose of the Torah, the purpose of the inner Torah, to refine us, but particularly to have the intention to draw this light, the surrounding light, all the more so the surrounding light of the Zohar Kodosh that Rebbe Avraham Morechai brought to us, as he himself is from the surrounding light. It's a great thing to have this merit. Back to the words of the Baal HaSulam, the middle of page 43. Now the soul of Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai was from the aspect of surrounding light, and so he had the capacity to enclose matters and expound them in such a way that even though he expresses them publicly, only those who were fitting to understand his words would comprehend them. He was therefore given permission to author the Zohar, and permission to write a book on this wisdom was not granted to his teachers and predecessors, even though they were certainly more familiar with this wisdom than he was. The reason for this was that they did not have the capacity to enclose matters as he could, and therefore it is stated, the son of Yochai knew to guard his way, as said in Zohar Mishpatim 100b. From this you can appreciate the great degree of concealment in the Zohar that Rashbi wrote. For not just any mind can grasp his words. And here ends the quote of the Ari and ends the lesson for today. But just to preface, before we continue at our next lesson, thankfully, despite this great concealment, there has been great clarifications that are existing today in our generation so that we can absorb this great surrounding light and make it inner to slowly but surely refine us. All the best.